It's so freaking hot, right?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Nice to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining us for another Priestess View. I'm Goddess Rhonda, and of course, we have with us our beautiful Goddess Star.
Everyone, good to be here. And blessed full moon. I believe we had a full moon past. Blessed full moon to you all. I hope you guys all enjoyed celebrating it. And as usual, Goddess Rhonda is looking beautiful as usual in that red color.
Thank you so much.
And it's hot. I was just telling you it's hot.
Tonight, we're going to just kick back and relax, and we're going to talk about the different kinds of witches, the different kinds of witchcraft. First, by no means is this list of the different types of witches complete. There are so many, you know, there's just from all over the world, but we just gathered up some to go over with you, and the different types of witchcrafts and things like that, just to sit and talk about it and kind of relax a little bit. And so, as always, before we begin, we like to cast a circle of protection around us.
Right up there. I usually have this lit up already, and I didn't this time.
That's okay, Goddess. We forgive you. All hail, our lords and ladies of the East, our brothers and sisters, our brother and patron, the sacred element of air, namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you. So it is, so mote it be.
Thank you, and so it is, so mote it be. All hail, our lords and ladies of the South, my brothers and sisters, my brother and patron, the sacred element of fire, namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge you, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face the direction. From corner to corner and end to end, let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is, so mote it be.
So it is, so mote it be. All hail, our lords and ladies of the West, our brothers and sisters, our sister and patron, the sacred element of water, namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction. From corner to corner and end to end, let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you. So it is. So mote it be.
And so it is, and so mote it be. All hail, our lords and ladies of the North, my brothers and sisters, my sister and patron, the sacred element of earth. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge you, please cause a barrier of protection to all of our walls that face your direction. From corner to corner and end to end, let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you. So it is, and so mote it be.
So it is. So it is. And we now bring down the divine white light from the sacred source of all well-being and fill all of our spaces with peace and protection always. So it is, so mote it be.
So it is, and so mote it be.
Now, before we get into our discussion about the various types of witches and witchcraft, Goddess Star, how about an update on Witch Fest, which is rapidly approaching?
Yes. Yes, it is fast approaching, and as I said before, this year it's 3 days, the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th. We have so many presenters this year. I think everyone is going to love, or at least find people that you love going to, or classes that you love going to. On Friday, which is $31 for 9 classes. Or on Saturday, that's free, and there are 15, I believe, workshops, or 16 workshops, one of those, 15, I believe, for you to partake of. And all of us, Goddess Rhonda is going to be there. She's there every day. She's there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with different workshops, right? Of course. And we have so many wonderful people like Christian Day, Brian Kane, Christine Stevens, we've got Kwamran Taj, we've got Olga L, we've got Aya Imaku, Queen Mother, There are such a long array of names, including Lilith Dorsey and Lady Rhea. There's so many of them, and we would love to have you come and visit. Take of the amazing vendors, almost 60 vendors this year for you to partake of. So you're going to enjoy being there. Last year, a lot of you said you did not bring enough money because there were so many things there that you wanted. So don't forget to walk with as much as you can. Also, don't forget to bring, as I mentioned that, I just thought about it too. Don't forget to bring, if you can, at least one item, or if you can, some people brought a bag of groceries, non-perishables, collect. And at the end of the day, City Harvest comes and takes it and gives it to the different food pantries. Because as we all know, a lot of people are hurting as the time goes by. For some reason, there's a lot of people in need of food. And it's the one thing that I say that no matter what, whether you don't have money or whatever it is, the one thing you cannot stand to see a human do is suffer from starvation.
Right.
So I'd love to have you bring non-perishable food so that we can give them out to the different pantries. And we, again, there's Sunday. Wow, we have so many different things. And at the end, we have a beautiful drumming ceremony that we're going to be having. So, and that on Sunday's workshop is, I believe, 18 workshops altogether. And that one is $91 for 18 workshops. That's very, a lot of them, like mine, for instance, has an actual revocation ritual and past life removal of contracts. So there's a whole lot that's going into it on the indoors because we can't do that outdoors. To try to go with ones that are indoors because a lot of the really great things that we want to present to people, we cannot do it outdoors. And of course, to accommodate the cost of where we are, these workshops, we do have to pay for the spaces and everything. So we would love to have you come out and register for the workshops. Go online at www.witchesfest, WITCHS as in Sam, F as in Frank, EST, If you can go online and register for the classes, we still have some room. So please do so. All right. And thank you all. I hope to see a lot of you guys down there. All right. Again, that's July 14th, 15th, and 16th. Thank you so much.
I hope to see everybody here too. It's going to be a great event with so many teachers, so many opportunities to learn so many different things in one space, in one weekend. You know, instead of going from here to there to here to there to learn things, there's just a million classes going on that you can take advantage of. It might be hard to choose which ones, but you can get a real education in one weekend of pretty much just about anything you want to know. And so please take advantage of this opportunity and sign up. All righty, so with that said, let's go ahead. We're going to start talking about our different types of witches, different types of witchcraft. You might find that you identify with a lot of them. Like when we get into the different types of witchcraft, it's like, oh, look, I do that. Oh, look, I do that. Oh, look, I do that. So it's kind of like some of them I don't. One of them I enjoyed that I'm going to actually do, but we'll talk about that when we get up to it. But first, let's start talking about the different types of witches. So we're going to start with what I feel personally in my heart is the most common, which is the solitary witch. And this is just my belief, of course. You know, I'm just talking from my own particular theories. But I believe that even if you're in a coven, you're still at heart a solitary witch, because you still, and this is for people that actually embrace the witch lifestyle. Like Goddess Star and I, this is our lifestyle. We get up in the morning with candles and spells and
it's just who we are.
It's who we are. So with that said, even if you're in a coven, you're still responsible for doing your own stuff on your own, you know, within your own household, maintaining your prosperity, maintaining your good health, keeping all the evil at bay and things like that. So I still think, even though we can come together and socialize in a group, ultimately we are all solitary witches. because
Absolutely.
we still have to handle our own stuff. And I have no problem with being a solitary. I think that, now I'm not saying for all of you coven witches out there, I am in no way saying that it is better to be a solitary than to be in a group. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But when I
What
am,
they're saying, yeah.
in my opinion, is that as a solitary, you have a lot more leeway in trying different traditions and trying different things that you can do on your own and exploring. Maybe one week you want to study Hinduism, the next week you want to study African tradition religion. You can just kind of be everywhere and get a real universal knowledge and workings. So what do you think about being a solitary witch? Because I know you're a solitary witch like me, Goddess Star. And if there are other solitaries, please, by all means, with anything solitary coven, please join us in the chat room, which you should see if you're on a desktop. It's to the right of your screen. I don't know where it is if you're on a phone or if you're on a tablet. But if you're on a desktop, at least it's to the right. And I guess if you maneuver your phone, you would find it. And we appreciate all your comments. So go ahead, Goddess Star. I know that you're a solitary like
Okay. Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's the funniest thing. I'm going to speak about the solitary, but I'm going to also say a poem that was written by George Knowles, and it just reminded me so much of. It's a short poem, about witches, and it just reminded me about when you said when we decided that we were going to do this particular show tonight. I smiled to myself and I said she needs to hear this one as well. But yes, solitary. Okay, so now I'm going to have to say, let me go to that first. It said, okay, it's done by George Knowles, and he calls it Witches. And then right beneath that, he says, witches here, witches there. Then it goes into the rest of it. Witches everywhere. White witch, black witch, good witch, wicked witch. Who can tell the difference? Contemporary witch, coven witch, traditional witch, kitchen witch, hereditary witch, heath witch. Who and what are they? Gardnerian witch, eclectic witch, Alexandrian witch, solitary witch, Nordic witch, Celtic witch, fairy witch, witchcraft witch. But which witch is which? And which one have you decided you will be? I thought I've always loved that when I saw him write that, I said that is so perfect. Yeah, it's so perfect. It's such a perfect little thing. But I love what he wrote. That I was years ago. I found that, like, I think it was back in 2012 or 10 or something like that. And I said that is a good one to hold on to. So I've always held on to it. But anyways, regarding being solitary, I think you're absolutely right. I believe that no matter what traditions, whether we do it with covens or groups or whatever it is that we want to call it, no matter what, you're the one at home alone practicing. And I honestly, if that's what you choose to do, is to take that coven tradition or that public tradition that you do, and that's how you practice at home, that's up to you, but you're still practicing in a solitary manner. Given that. It's just like I teach in our academy. I tell people we have our temple tradition.
right.
I'll get to that later on, but we have our temple tradition that we came up with. And the reason that there are so many traditions is because, like Goddess Rhonda said, they're from around the world. I started one, Goddess Rhonda started one. We all and everyone can start a tradition. So that's why there are so many traditions around the world that you will never be able to catch up with all of them. And there are so many. Each person that decided that they were going to start their own. There are families at home that the mom and the dad, if they're witches, they're the ones that the priest and priestess of their coven, and their kids belong to their coven. So it's all depending on how you see it. But as a solitary practitioner, a lot of them, and I do know that it's one of the biggest traditions actually, when you think about it.
It is.
Because, like I said, whether or not you have a coven or a tradition of any kind that you're following publicly with other people, that's different. But still, in general, besides the people that are still with traditions and practicing at home solitary wise, there are a lot of people, a lot of witches that have decided that they prefer to work in private than within the confines of any group or coven. They just prefer their practice at home. They study in a singular fashion. They and majority of times that solitary witch is an eclectic witch because they pick up many different things that they decide works better for them than someone else's tradition.
Right.
You know, and the reason people come up with different traditions is because they may have gone to a group or something like that and saw certain things that they liked and then certain things they didn't like. So if people go to many different groups or whatever to practice to celebrate a Sabbat or an Esbat and they enjoyed it, but they still want to find their own or other traditions, and after a while they stop looking and they say, you know what, I'll just do my own thing. Well, hey, you just your own solitary tradition at home, you know, and that's just the way it is, you know. So either you decide to accept it as that, because a lot of people are not solitary people,
Right.
who cannot seem to function properly as a solitary witch, and that's okay. We're not saying it either way, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent, none of that. We're simply stating what the differences are and that there are a ton of people like that. There was I remember there was a coven, I forgot the name of it, in England, that there were 765 members. 765 of them. So, you know, it all depends. And literally speaking, a lot of them said that they were solitary and they came together with this group that they liked. So it's up to you to decide what you want to call yourself. But there you go. Absolutely agree with Goddess Rhonda.
Absolutely. And you might find, if you're like me, you don't like rules and you don't like being controlled, then, you know, embracing solitary life is a good thing. Because I'll be honest with you, you know, I don't like rules. I don't like being controlled, and I don't like being told what I can do, what God I can talk to, or anything like that. I feel like I should be able to do whatever I want without limits. And so being a solitary works for me because I love learning about every kind of tradition, and I like to try things out and see how it resonates with me. And so if you're that, they should actually call maybe us rebellious witches, because we want to do what we want to do. And, you know, if nobody likes it, that's just too bad, because we're going to do what we do. So,
yeah,
but,
yeah, that's so funny. I'm still thinking of myself. I always think of myself as an eclectic witch because yes, I'm solitary, but I do so many things, you know, and like you said, and I like what you just said actually, because it reminded me of something else. When you said you don't like being told that these are the different deities that you're going to work with and nobody else, or different things. There's a lot of traditions that's exactly what they do, and that's okay for them.
Yeah, and
a lot of people love it, you know. Not one of them.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
By no means am I putting you down or diminishing you in any kind of way. I am just saying I don't like being told what to do, and I don't like being controlled or said I can only talk to so and so gods and goddesses. You know, when I do ceremonies, I bring in gods and goddesses, deity from all over the world, and they all work very well together, at least with me. They all work together to help me achieve what it is I'm trying to do. And so that works with me. I can, as long as I can do what I want. You know, when I say that, you know, I'm never out to harm anyone. So no one has to say, oh, well, she wants to kill someone, she could do that too. No, of course not. That's not who I am. But I do love to explore, and I love to make new spiritual acquaintances. And I love new knowledge that I like to try out. So if you're that type of person, then embracing the solitary life would work well with you, because I can't be in a group where there's all this hierarchy and dramas and things like that. I can't do that, you know. So anyway, with that said, Goddess Star, what's next on the list?
Okay, 1 second. I think that's Nate. Nate just said in the group that this is the second show that he's seen where it's picking up a lot of noises and voices coming in. And I'm not sure what that is, because I know I have mine on mute. But he said, yeah, it must be attracting unwanted attention or something, he said. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is.
I'm also on mute. So, you know, it can also be, unfortunately, we don't have control over the YouTube Hangout technology. And so I don't know what's going on with that. Sometimes it happens. A lot of times it's clear, and then sometimes we have issues with it. But I'm definitely muted because I checked, and I'm sorry that's
Sorry, Nate. Yeah, I hope it gets better. All right, because we love having you guys there and listening in and participating with us. You guys are literally very much part of our show. So
yeah.
I hope it helps. Yeah.
And you should also know, Nate, that you're also right. Goddess Star and I, for some reason, we do attract unwanted attention. There's a reason that we always come late. We're not going to bother saying why, but we do attract unwanted attention. For some reason, people resent us, and you know what? That's their issue. I can't be bothered. I have no time to waste on bullshit. So we're going to keep rolling. What's next on the list, Goddess Star?
Okay, there's the secular kind of witches. And honestly, I'll tell you something, as I said the word witches. There are many of these traditions that they do not consider themselves witches. They consider themselves Wiccans. So I hope I am not, because I don't know much about the secular ones. So I'm hoping that I'm not misstating when I say witches, whether they're Wiccans or witches. But the secular witches are of the non-religious type. They don't connect with any kind of deity. They just practice, and they don't see it in any way in any religious manner, because religious manner comes into play when you are connecting with deities, or you see a bigger a bigger being, or a bigger non-sentient being, or something that's there that you connect with and work with. And so the secular ones are similar to that. So what do you think? Again, I don't know much about them. So, but what do you think, Goddess Rhonda?
Well, looking at the definition, not connecting with deity, I think that's more of magicians or the high magic.
Yeah,
because
I think so.
Bring spirituality into it. I don't know personally, and again, this is just my opinion, no offense to anyone. I personally have a very difficult time understanding an atheist witch or a witch that does not connect to deity. But that's just me. That, you know, I would think of more of those people as more as magicians doing the high magic stuff that doesn't bring that in. I don't resonate well with that, only because I am so attached to deity and spirit that the very idea of not having their energies around me or working with them or communing with them is too much for me. In fact, there's a show on that's extremely popular. I can't remember what channel it's on, maybe ABC or NBC, you can look it up, and it's called The Magicians. And I love shows with magic in it. As soon as there's a show on,
I remember you told me about that one. I remember that. Go ahead.
As soon as there's a show that I see that that brings magic into it, I'm going to be one of the first ones there watching it, because I want to be supportive of that show. Because a lot of times those shows don't last long because the advertisers have issues with it. But I started watching that show, and I have to tell you, I really did not like it. And I was telling Goddess Star, in fact, on a show we were doing, I don't remember which one it was, but on a show that we were doing, I was complaining. I was like, I hate the show. There's just no spirit in it. I can't stand it. It's just magic and power. And Star said that, well, that's because they're not witches, they're magicians, and magicians would love this show because they don't want to watch our stuff with deity and you know, the spirits and things like that. And I was like, wow, because I had made that connection between magicians not bringing in or utilizing deity much. That's not to say that all magicians don't, because I don't know all magicians, and that's not a field that I am really well versed in. But for the ones that do just, you know, do their magic without deity, you know, I don't know. I honestly don't know, in my definition, if those are actual witches. In my definition, I don't feel like those are witches. But I don't know, because I don't know all the ins and outs and things like that. You know, I'm ignorant about this. So I don't know. So if any of you out there know or want to try to explain it more to me, by all means, you know, come on and get into the chat room and talk to us about it. But I have a hard time with it. I'll be honest with you, calling a magician.
There's a few of them that I have a hard time with. There's a few of them, you know.
Well, we'll talk about those too.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as we get up to it. Go ahead.
So that's, you know, my thoughts on that. Because we did I went to Hex Fest the year before last, and there was a presenter, and I don't remember what her name was, and I took her class. I'm trying to remember why I took the class. I don't remember what the class was about, but
just tell me, and I'll probably be able to tell you the name.
She said that she was an atheist witch. The presenter. She's blonde, and I can't remember.
Is that Rosemary?
No, she's not even. She's
okay. You know, that's what I was wondering. Okay, because I don't think she's a witch at all.
No, she's not a witch at all. She's a paranormal whatever. I don't even want to talk about her. She has an Australian accent, or I think she's from Australia.
Oh, I know who you mean. What's her name? Horn. That Horn. You know who I mean? She's a pilot.
Yeah, she's a pilot.
She's a pilot from Australia and everything. She's awesome. I love her. Oh, I did not know that. What is it that you said she is?
She called, when in the class, she said that she is an atheist witch.
Fiona Horn.
That's it, Fiona.
Yeah, she's such an awesome person. I loved her. That
was the first time I had actually heard the expression of an atheist witch. And I remember it was just like in my head, like, how can you be an atheist witch? I mean, the woman with stuff, I mean, she flies food to all these little impoverished countries, and she does a lot of social work.
Yeah, she does.
In different countries that doesn't have that. I mean, a very charitable soul. Which to me, it's like, how can you say that you're an atheist and you are so charitable and you strike me as so spiritual? But I just don't really, I just can't seem to grasp the concept of it. I just can't. That doesn't mean that there's no such thing, or just because I'm ignorant about it, you know, that I'm sure that they have a perfectly reasonable explanation that maybe if someone explained it to me, I get it. But if anyone can explain that to me out there or listening or in the chat room, please do, because that is something I'm very ignorant about, and I don't like being ignorant about things. I like to learn. So there we go with that one. So let's see what we got next on our list here. I would say the Eclectic Witch, an individual's practice that has bits and pieces pulled from different magical and or spiritual practices respectfully. That is definitely me. I am just pulling from everything and everybody, and I just love it. I love, you know, when I come across new deity, it's almost like I'm seeing old friends again and feeling their energies with me. And so that's who I am. I guess, you know, just a little hodgepodge here, some of this, something of that. You know, I'll take what resonates with me and I'll add it to my own stuff. And that's what I love. That's something that I love. Now, there are people out there that don't like eclectic witches. They're like, oh, you can't be an eclectic witch. You have to choose a tradition and blah, 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 blah. It's like, look, whatever. I'm here to tell you this. Don't let anybody tell you what you can and cannot do. You can do whatever the hell you want. And if it's comfortable for you to do that, then it's okay for you to do it. Just because someone else is uncomfortable with that, that's their challenge, and let that be their challenge. It has nothing to do with you. So don't let anyone say, well, you know, you're not a real witch because, you know, you have to declare a tradition. You don't have to do jack. You just have to go with the flow and do what you want to do and do what resonates with you and do what works for you. And if that means you're bringing in 20 different spiritualities and 20 different deities to help you do it, then by all means do it, because it means that you have the permission to do it. You know, some people, I've said this before, that, you know, this is a learning institution down here, and they tossed us down here. And some of us are just going through grade school. We're in elementary school spiritually. Some of us have gone on to middle or high school. Some are graduating with their associates or their bachelors. Some are going for their PhDs. And each one has its own set of rules. And so if you're up there doing, you know, where you've just experienced, because I believe we've been everything. The more mature souls, there's, you know, I'm not saying everybody is a mature soul, because there are a lot of immature souls, people who are just coming through. But for those mature souls, I believe that we have already been everything. And so that's why I have a hard time understanding when people get angry. And I've been told off on YouTube, you know, for having white people do a show on hoodoo. It's like, oh my goodness, the backlash I got on that. And my attitude is, what difference does it make? We've already all been, well, not all of us, as I said, there are, you know, some souls that may have not. But for those mature souls that have already been everything and are now just kind of gathering information here or information there, or I don't know what that soul's person was in the last lifetime, and maybe that's what they gravitated towards. You do what you feel in your heart you want to do, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it or try to put you down. That's their problem. They want to live in a little box, in a little shell. By all means, I wish them well, and I hope they're happy in their box. But don't pull me into your box with you, and don't let anyone pull you into their box with them, unless you want to go into the box. And if you do, hey, that's okay. Go ahead, Goddess Dark, because I see your
Patrick Swayze. That's like Patrick Swayze saying, nobody puts baby in the corner. Well, nobody puts us in the in the box. So, you know, before I kind of go into, well, actually, let me go into that. I agree with you totally about the eclectic witchcraft or the eclectic witch, because my term for it implies that it's someone that doesn't follow any strict traditional guidelines in their practice of the craft. It includes like a broad range of philosophies or rituals and practices, and of course their deities are a broad range as well. And I believe in that concept, like you said, that many of us are, the school that we're in or the level of our schooling is different, because we're all different people, and we've all traveled this path in different times, different eras, different dates, and whatever it is, because I believe in that concept, like you, of the reincarnation and everything. So our many sayings or beliefs of all of these different deities is basically saying, in this lifetime, I'm supposed to deny all the ones that I've gone through and had relationships with. And we're not willing to do that.
Not at all.
Traditions and practices, because, you know, we've been many people in many of our lifetimes, and we've had all these different backgrounds and practices and traditions. I can choose different parts of it. That kind of comes together in this hodgepodge or this modge, where you form what's this heading, where they have to, oh lordy, to me it's just like anything else, they have to pigeonhole us. So if you want to pigeonhole us, yes, we are eclectics, because we kind of pick and choose what we want or don't want. There are many aspects of things that people, to me, follow along with, and they don't even know why they're doing it. Right. But that's okay. You know, again, the level of grade school that they're all going through, we don't adhere to conformity in certain things. We tend to create our own and move on, you know, just like how we talk about our goddesses and different traditions all getting along just fine. And people are like, oh my gosh, you know. So it all depends on how someone sees it.
Right.
And we're not dictating to anyone with anything at all. We never do that. As a matter of fact, we tell you, do what's best for you. So, you know, whatever your belief, lifestyle with it, or your circumstances, whatever suits it, that's your religious beliefs, and you can take that away from you. When you go home and you close the door, you think anyone's going to come and go, oh, you can't practice your own private magic here or anything, or you practice your own eclectic witchcraft here? They're not. They don't care. So you can move on with your own things. And a lot of people have actually criticized eclectic witches and say that a lot of eclectic witches don't even consider things important like initiations or oaths and traditions and lineage. it matters to us as well. It's just not as important as it is to you. It's just, and it's important to me, and it's important maybe to Goddess Rhonda. You know,
Absolutely.
it's just a different way with our own concept and our own traditions. And respect for ours, just like much as we give respect to yours, is all we ask. Just like with anything else. I ask of my mom all the time, you're a Christian, I'm a witch, you may not like it, but just respect it because I respect what's right for you. It's nothing as difficult or complicated as anyone thinks.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to kind of quickly say, because Nate said some things. He said um, there's a blessing and a curse. You have it because not everyone shares the same box to contain. No school. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot that's his name on there. Like shamans being traditional psychopomps, witches being herbal healers, diviners, reading the probability fields, etc. But that is also a problem of applying an academic model to magic. He also said, plus some labels are supposed to be culturally exclusive. And he so much agrees with you, Goddess Rhonda's eclectic term that whatever your ancestors or guides want to teach you, they will. And they don't need anyone's labels.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely right.
Absolutely
Where
right.
I'm up down, yes. So I agree with you entirely.
I agree also. And, I had gone to, I don't like labels. I don't like labels. I don't want to be labeled as anything but what I am. And I had gone to a party, and there was a gay woman there who said to me, "Are you gay?" And I said, "You know what? I like to think of, I don't like labels. And I think more in terms of people as energy as opposed to whatever they are physically. I see their energy. And it all depends on energy." And she goes, "That's not telling me anything, either you are or you're not." And I said, "Let me tell you something, sweetie. I don't like labels. I have been labeled my whole life. I have been labeled as a Black person. I have been labeled as a plus size person or a fat person. I have been labeled with so many things as a woman in a very discriminatory way. She's just a woman. Growing up, there's just so many things that I have been labeled and suffered with discrimination against, that you can keep your freaking label." And she just, she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. It's like, do not label me. Don't label me. I've been labeled my whole life, and I don't like it. It's not like it's a nice label, like, oh, Rhonda, with a nice label. It's always with something discriminatory with it. Oh, you're Black. Oh, you're heavy. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're just a woman. Oh, you're a witch. That means you must love Satan, or all these other things. Labels to me are just ways to discriminate against people, to stick them in a box.
Yes.
So I refuse to wear a label because I have resented being labeled all of my life. And so, that's my rant about labels. I don't like being labeled, and not only that, I think that in Goddess Story, I think you'll agree with me, because you study like I do and you learn like I do. When I learn something new, I might gravitate towards that tradition or that modality for a little while and get used to it and enjoy doing it and become an adept at it. And then I move on to the next one. Yeah. I'm going to go study that and learn that. So I'm constantly evolving. I think when you stick yourself in a box and put a label on yourself, I almost feel like you're stopping the evolution. Maybe you're supposed to. Maybe in this lifetime, this is the one thing you're supposed to study. And I am not saying this with any type of offense intended whatsoever. Whatever it is that you're here for to do, rock on. I am here to support you. But I am just saying that some of us eclectic witches, because I feel like we get beat up the most. We are constantly evolving. It's just a constant thing where, okay, today I'm going to study this, and then the next day maybe Goddess Star will post an article about something that I don't know about. It's like, oh, what's that? I'm going to go study that. And so I just feel like also with labels, you're not allowing yourself to evolve. And again, if you're not supposed to in this lifetime, if you're supposed to just study one particular thing, I support you in that 100%. I would never cast aspersion on anyone and their spirituality ever. I am only talking about my own personal ideas, because I really get sick of seeing the infighting. You know, I go on Facebook and I'm so tired of the traditions fighting it out, like who knows the most and who's been here longer and blah blah blah, and whose ancestors. Like, what difference does it make? We are all here to be of service. I believe that witches are here of service. I really do. Maybe not all of them are, but I think that for the most part, would you agree with that, Goddess Star, that for the most part, witches are of service?
We are of service and so servicing ourselves and evolving and everything, you know. And I think if you, again, that's just my opinion. I think if you limit yourself, that extra growth or that adeptness that you would have gotten from whatever it is very limiting. I don't want to make anyone feel like I'm disparaging them in any way. So I'm not going to go any further on that. I'm just going to say that, you know, is each his own. And, you know, there's only some that I kind of say, I totally have no say on it, because I so agree with it. Don't see it, so it's not in my phase zone to see it. So again, to each his own. But definitely, I think but then again, you see, when I go through certain sections of like you said, you would read a certain type of thing, like whether it's green witchcraft or different things, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's part of me too, and that's part of me too, you know, and the different things, like the Borg of witches. I
Are you saying the Borg from Star Trek?
I've created the Borg witches. Okay, where they assimilate and take on the aspects of all that they want.
Wow, Goddess Star, you're the first person that's ever like combined Star Trek and witchcraft and created your own.
Like you know what I mean? All go in and they take and they assimilate and assume, and they're like, I am here.
That's right.
They all become part of the collective.
It's futile. You know, I love the Borg.
Exactly. You know, because think about it. Like, we go and we learn all these many different things. We become that part for a bit, and we absorb and we consume and we move on to the next, and we do the same thing. We assimilate, we put together, and then we're like, you're part of the collective of Star, or you're part of the collective of Goddess Rhonda. Okay. Okay, I'm being silly, right? But I think it's just similar to that, you know?
It is very similar. And I just wanted to say, Nate, by all means, you chat as much as you want in the chat room, because we love your wisdom. So don't feel like you're monopolizing. You're not. If anyone wants to put their thing in, it'll come in. By all means, keep coming, because I just
in the meantime, you keep on talking, Nate. It's always welcome.
Always, always, always welcome. Always welcome. And so maybe I'm wrong, but you know, when you were talking about someone coming after us or whatever, and right after that, I really felt your energy very strongly, like you were trying to do something to fix it. I don't know if you were
being protective. He was being very protective. You can almost see me going.
I just wanted you to know that I appreciate it. Mwah! Thank you very much for coming to the rescue of us damsels in distress, like the true magical knight that you are, and we appreciate it.
Yes.
All right, guys.
You can almost see him going. Stop it.
It's your turn to talk from the list, Goddess Star. So what?
Okay. Let's see. Okay, the next one is oh wow, I do not know anything about this one. I've never heard of it before, but all right, go ahead. Satanic. Okay, their witchcraft is that it is often centered around honoring and or working with Satan in spell work and prayer. Again, I have absolutely no concept of this. Okay.
I don't really either, but
I am literally at a loss for words. Have you ever heard me at a loss for words?
this is not something. Well, that's because this is not something that we. I guess we do see satanic witchcraft. Okay, well, and then it's interesting. What I find interesting is the theistic satanic, and then the atheist. And I hope I'm saying this word correctly. Levion satanic, where witchcraft work with the idea that Satan is a concept rather than a real person or entity. Loosely put, it's a very detailed concept, also known as satanic witches who fit the secular description. So I'm like completely lost on this one. As this is something that I'm ignorant about, which I can, I don't know everything. But, just to be fair, we're trying to include as many things as we can. I did want to throw in this as I see this, because I see that it's not in our list, and I probably should have added it. And this is only something that I personally recently found out, because in the Luciferian traditions, I had always associated that with a satanic tradition, because I didn't know any better. And because I come from a Christian background, I'd always heard that, oh, Lucifer is this horrible person and akin to Satan. And actually, I decided to look it up one day, because I really don't like to honor other people's beliefs. I need to know what it is for myself. And so I actually looked it up and found out that first of all, the two of them have nothing to do with each other. And the Luciferians recognize that they are in control of it. It's almost like they are self-realized. When you do self-realization, it's when you actually consider yourself a god or a goddess, because you recognize that you are the one that's creating your own life. You're creating everything that's going on in your life. And so Lucifer actually is called the Lord of Light, because he actually brings people into the understanding of their own gifts and energy and leads them to the light. This is way different than what I was taught in Sunday school. I mean, like, not even close, not even code. And then I felt really bad, because I don't like it if, and I was a child, of course, I'm not going to beat myself up, but I don't like being ignorant about things or saying things that are ignorant or having those kinds of beliefs. And when I saw that one had nothing to do with the other, and that actually I have no problem with self-actualization goal of your life, and recognizing that, even if your life is in chaos, if you created chaos, then you can create order, you can create whatever you want inside of your own life. And that he was trying to teach people how to use their own innate powers. I'm like, well, rock on, Lucifer, because I have no problem with that. In fact, I think that's a lot of what me and Goddess Star try to do, is try to enlighten people and get them to work with their own energies and their own power, and to recognize the strong, powerful beings that you are, and how to utilize those energies. We bring in deity, we talked about not everybody does, but how you can do that. So I wanted to throw that in there. I meant to write it in, and I forgot until we just saw this, that if you also have grown up in the church and was told that Lucifer and Satan are the same people and they're horrible people and blah, blah, blah. Satan I can't talk about, because I know nothing about it. I don't know anything really, except what was taught in Sunday school, and I take anything with that with a grain of salt. But I did personally look into the Luciferian religions, spirituality, and was shocked that, it was so different than what I was taught. And so I felt like I needed to stick up for Lucifer and say what it is he was really about, as opposed to, and I could see where in the churches where they would try to put him down, because he's trying to teach you about your own power and how to work within it, as we witches do. And, the Christian traditions that I come from were like, oh, no way. You're supposed to just say the prayer and wait on the Lord, and you are not allowed to use any of your own gifts and abilities. So I just wanted to throw that in there to say that one has nothing to do with the other. Both Goddess Star and I, we're not going to stay too much on the Satanism topic, because we don't really know about it.
I don't know anything about it. I don't want to speak
fair and bring up everybody, because we're not trying to be discriminate against anyone. So we just threw that out there. What's next on the list after satanic
Okay. Oh, really quickly before I go on to the next one, which is hereditary.
Uh-huh.
Nate says in an important point we should consider, some folks need to use a label because they need to come out. When I say wizard, I am saying to the world, I am not the ignorant, judgmental turd I used to be. Don't say that about you. You're not that person. When he says some witches want or need others to honor the sacredness of their calling, you can even hear it in their voice when they say the term witch. They are that serious and holy in their work.
Right.
That's all. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. See, and you always bring us that wisdom that you're talking about, so don't you dare hold back. There you go.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You
The
say
next one is
excellent.
hereditary or blood. Um, and hereditary, which is uh, let's see. It says including oneself in the practice of witchcraft on the grounds of having been born into a family who also practices. Knowledge and practice may also be passed down through generations and honor old ways of magic. So in essence, whenever they speak about hereditary, if Nate and his wife or his girlfriend got together and has a kid, and raised that kid, in any kind of parts of whatever they are as a witch, that's a hereditary witch because they're raising them as that witch. Like my son was raised as he's a hereditary witch. So it's up to, and they're not, they don't always stay. Just like with any other religion, they get to decide when they get older what they want to become or not. you know my son just says, Mom, I'm a witch. That's all I need to be. I don't need to do anything else. He doesn't consider anything else any other way, and that's just what he is. And he has his tools, but he doesn't do anything else beyond that. To each his own, and he practices his own and does whatever it is he has to do. And I am not in any way deciding what is right for him or not. He's older now, so he can do as he pleases. But as a child, when he was with me, he took the Dragon Academy classes. He became very adept at it, and he from very young, he had a Wickening when he was born. He had a baby blessing before he was born. He had everything all the way up. So he's been there the whole time for a long time. So he would be considered a hereditary witch. And a lot of I remember, what was it? Raven Gramassi wrote a book called Hereditary Witch, so you can check that out and see what it is that he has. It is based on the Striggeria type of witchcraft, which is Italian witchcraft. So it is based on that, but you can certainly look it up. But there's a lot of hereditary witches, and basically saying, remember me mentioning earlier about a family of witches at home, and the parents are the priest and priestess, and the kids, and they form at home. So that's already hereditary witches right there. So it's all good. And that's my thoughts on it. What do you think, Goddess Rhonda?
Well, I think that if you're a witch, you probably are a hereditary witch, because Christian people especially, they won't use the word witch, but they use other things. So for example, my mother, who's the one who actually got me into
Yes.
herbalism and mixing herbs and doing things like that, she used to call herself a prayer warrior. And whatever she prayed for happened. So that tells me, yes, Mom, you were a witch too. If what you're praying for happens, you were a witch too. And you'll talk to people. I talk to a lot of people, especially when I'm giving, classes, and I explain about bloodlines as a part of your spiritual DNA, if you're psychic and things like that. And they'll say, oh, my grandmother, she was Catholic, but she used to read tea leaves, or she used to do something else, or my great grandmother or my mother used to, she would do cards sometimes or things like that. A lot, especially if you're from the Christian traditions, you may not call yourself a witch, but you'll call yourself something else, particularly
Yeah.
the prayer warriors,
Yeah.
or the there's another one I'm trying to think of what it is that has to do with healing that I can't think of it right now. But to
No,
me,
I can't think of it.
but it's a ceremonial healer type of a person. I just can't think of what they call themselves. right
Right.
at this second. It'll pop into my head probably at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm sleeping.
Yeah. I'm
But
just
they'll call themselves that. They'll call themselves something else, which to us means, yes, you're a witch. Hello.
yes, yes. They just would not admit it. You know what I mean?
Well, they
Yeah.
can't because of their own religion. So they'll
Religion.
call
Yeah.
it something else. The psychic, the Christian psychics, they will never call themselves a psychic, but they will say that they are prophets. You know,
Yeah.
okay, that's the same thing as a psychic. Say the word, say
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
with me. Psychic. You are psychic. No, I'm a prophet. Okay, well, then prophet on. And
Okay. Yeah.
I think that even though, there are witches that embrace being a witch and teach their children to be witches, there are also other traditions that utilize magic, but they do not call themselves witches. They'll call it something within their own, something that makes their own soul feel comfortable. A prayer warrior, a hands-on healer, a prophet, that sort of thing. And my grandmother, she was a prophet, and my mother was one too. Well, then that's your bloodline. So I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
go
That's
into
true.
the
That is
whole
absolutely true.
of people when they're like, well, here's my lineage, and they're listing all this. My
Yes.
mom, my grandmother, and going on. And even though they may not have called themselves a witch, they were witches. They just
Yeah.
couldn't because of their Christianity. But they,
Right. Right. And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right because I remember my great grandmother, walking around the house in the middle of the night with I do not remember what it was called. It must have been a cauldron, like a hanging one. They used to walk around, I forgot, like a lantern kind of,
right,
walk through the house. And when you ask her, Granny, what are you doing? I'm incensing the house out to make it feel better and smell better in here.
right.
Walking around the house, just doing that. It was a big house, one of those two duplexes house in the Caribbean, and she's doing that, and I'm like, okay, I thought it was normal. I just, and she was Christian, so like you said, they practiced all of these things, and or they will call this. They used to say, I remember her saying, I have to call the woman to come and heal a certain thing, or the
Right.
chickens are not doing too well, so I have to call her to do something about the chickens so it will be better. I'm like, Grandma, I didn't know back then what to say anything. I'm like, okay, all right, Granny, amazing. But they did some things. I don't know all of it because I was a kid, but they did some things.
That's I just feel like if you're a witch, you're a hereditary witch. Your mother might not have handed you a book of shadows and said, here's your book of shadows, you're a witch. But she probably did other things, as probably your grandmother or your great grandmother did. So I don't really, when people's like, oh, what's your lineage? I'll go ahead and lift my mom, my grandmom, and everybody up because they might not have called themselves they were witches, but they were witches. And,
Yep, yep.
their religion kept them from saying what they were because they were afraid because of they might go to hell or whatever. So they found other words to use. But so my attitude is if you're a witch, you're probably a hereditary witch. You
Yeah, more than
might not
likely.
know it or realize it. But I will say this, I saw this show once. I can't remember so long ago, but they had done this they had done this show on witchcraft and things. And one of my favorite segments of it was just a one show thing. It wasn't like a series or anything. And the guy, the father of a 16-year-old girl, when his daughter said, like a boyfriend was going to come over or something, he could not resist. He had to put on his full robe and regalia.
Scare the shit out of them.
He had to put on the whole ensemble and answer the door. He had to be the one to answer the door to scare the crap out of the guy before he even, could even think about taking his daughter out on a date. He wanted that guy to know in his own way, if you screw up, you're screwed.
Oh, girl, I did the same thing for my sons. Only thing is, I didn't do it with my robe or anything. I'm a little person. I'm all of 5'1", if that much. So what I did, whenever the girls came, and all I could think about is, sorry, I'm not a girl. I would do this thing of where girls that are so manipulative with trying to get the boys and get pregnant and all the different things. I would put it on the table, and my gun is over there, and I'll point at it and I say, pregnant. Don't tell me my son did whatever.
Wow.
Literally. I kid you not. I'm like, he has to finish college. I was just like, I was bad.
Good for you, Goddess. You were being a good mommy. That's what you were doing.
Just like, you know.
Being a good mother.
Okay. All right. I did the female version of that male, okay?
That's funny. That's funny.
Okay.
All right.
So what's the next one on our list? Yes. Yes.
We did hereditary. Now we have
traditional flex. Yeah, go ahead.
One who practices witchcraft by honoring and using old and traditional ways of magic. This type of witch might be one to practice modern methods of magic, but they might also stick to traditional concepts or techniques. And so I take that to be the people that are brought into a, because of where they're using something specific and what we call traditional, you know, then they may work within only one system or one modality that they want to work within, as opposed to being all over the place. You know, that's what I take from that, that they just kind of pretty much stick to one thing, and as opposed to evolving into different things. And of course, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, everybody has to do what they feel is best. But what do you take from that? I mean, do you take that to be the same meaning as I do, or do you have a different slant on it?
No, that's exactly how I took it, because, you know, they and some of them may practice some of the modern methods of magic, but basically they want to stick to what they consider the old ways.
Right.
And they don't necessarily know if it's the old ways, because traditionals that I have met, I'm not going to say exactly, but some of them that I have met have been, when they practice, to me, they practice without questioning. They don't ask, well, okay, why are we doing this? Why is it done this way? Or why is this considered traditional? Who began? Where did it come from? And a lot of it that they consider traditional came from Gardner. And a lot of what he says, you've heard me say many times, different things that he just made up because he was either a nudist or whatever it is, and they follow it to the T, thinking it's traditional. So well, most traditionals are very much their followers in that sense, and that's not a bad thing. That's just, and everybody's lifetime, they have different phases to go through: the follower, the leader, the evolver, the whatever it is. And this is your lifetime, well, that's what you have to go through.
Right.
You know, that's all it is. So what's the next one, Goddess?
I'm going to let you say it because I know that it's one of your pet peeves.
I knew you were going to do that. I was trying to pass it on to you.
No way, no way, no way, no way. We are going to talk about this.
Well, it's actually a pet peeve of mine, but a friend of mine, Christine, oh my goodness, if you even just say the word Christian witchcraft or Christian witch, it's almost like she blows a gasket. It hits my nerve. If it hits my nerve and she blows a gasket, then I don't know what nerve is hitting on her. Like, wait, there could be such a thing. It's like she goes, she's hilarious. And this is the kind of one where I'm kind of you know, kind of thing with my mouth, because I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I'm not disparaging anyone in any way. Whatever you want to think or call yourself, that's your thing. But it just, to me, a Christian witch makes no sense in my head. It's like an oxymoronic thing, because, I mean, Christians, even in their Bible, it's like suffer the witch. So it's like the whole concept of it sounds like, I still cannot formulate the words. It does not make any sense in my head. because I mean, even though, to a lot of people, if you say the word Christ or whatever it is, or Jesus, he was the first witch. That's a lot of them. Don't consider him that. Christian witches don't consider him as part of that. They just consider having their deities only be the Christian God and nothing else. Or not deities, deity. So, and they tend to, I mean, I don't even honestly know a lot about them. It's just the words just does not fit together in my head. Christian and witch, it does not fit together. But there is a wide group of those, and I know many people on Facebook that has groups that will not allow a Christian witch in their group because they don't consider it existing. And such is life, But anyways, what do you think?
All right, so I have a different take. My own, now keep in mind, I am not, when I say Christian, I am not talking about the group of people who claim to follow Christ, because I have found that, keeping in mind that I come from that background, I have found that they do not follow Christ. They follow Peter, Paul, John, and the other apostles, but they are not listening to what Christ said. And Christ was, first of all, in the Old Testament, I have no problem saying that Christ, they changed it though. When Christ was born, there was 3 magi that came and gave him gifts. Those magi, it comes from magicians, magus. And so they're saying 3 magicians came to Christ as a baby and gifted him with presents. That was okay. What was the problem? There was no problem with magicians giving Christ presents when he was just a little baby in the manger. You can look that right up. They call it now 3 wise men. They had to change that because they're like, oh,
yeah.
We don't want anybody to know that they were really magicians. But it says clearly, if you look up MAGI, which is what they have in there, it says it's short for magician. So that's the first thing that contradicts everything that Christians, and again, when I say Christians, I am not talking about Christ. I'm talking about the people who are reading perverted principles that Christ tried to teach. They've changed things to keep the power away from you. So let's take the Christians out of it, the people who claim to follow him, because I've argued with them and they're like, well, John said, it's like, I have no interest in what John said. Are you a follower of John or are you a follower of Christ? Which is it? Because if they don't go together, decide who you're going to follow, John or Paul or Peter or Christ. So let's go back. So first we've got 3 magicians that gifted him when he was just a baby. Then Christ went on to become probably the biggest witch out there. He could heal people. You just had to touch his robe and you were healed. He was a prophet, which is the same thing as a psychic. In fact, I got up on a rampage, last year at Hex Fest. We had some donut heads disrupt the whole thing, and I got up and put the mic in there. I said the same thing. Christ was a magician. He turned water into wine. He fed the multitude with 1 fish. He was a healer. He could just look at you, you just touch his robe, and you were healed. He was a prophet, which is the same thing to me as a psychic, prophet, psychic, same difference to me. And yep. Christ said, you will go on to do greater things than me. And that to me says Christ is giving you permission to be a psychic, to be a healer, to be a magician, to be a witch. Use your skills and your powers and get out there and be of service like I am. That is the message I took from Christ's words. And if you break it down to the 3 magicians going to visit him, and they walked from wherever they were. I mean, how did they know he was being born? There had to be some magic involved that they knew where to be at what time with these gifts to give to him. And then he went on to be a healer, a psychic, and a magician. And he was persecuted as one. They did worse things the same way they persecuted the witches, drowned us, beat us, burned us. They did every inconceivable, horrible act to him too. So he was even persecuted as a witch, if you look at the big picture. Because they're like, who the hell are you to come out here and say that you can heal people and help people and do this and be a prophet and be the son of God, blah, 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 blah. So they beat the crap out of him and tormented and tortured him the same way they did to us witches. So as far as I'm concerned, taking Christians out of it, Christ was about the biggest darn and the most famous witch there was, and still is, as far as I am concerned. I take the Christians out of Christianity and focus on Christ. And
right.
I still consider Christ to be my brother as far as I'm concerned. He's one of my ancestors. You know, you can, and I've explained this to Christians too. Hello, if Christ is the Son of God and you consider God to be your father, then that means Christ is your brother. He's your brother. He was born of man too. He came from a woman's womb. He wasn't dropped down from heaven. Therefore, you share his DNA, which makes you have the same abilities and potentials as he did. And I wonder how much he must roll around so pissed off after all he went through, telling people to get out there and heal people and help people and use their powers and be of service. And everyone's like, no, I'm just going to sit back and pray and wait on the Lord, and I'm not going to do anything. He must be livid. I know I would be livid if that was me. If I suffered through all that, and then to have you people say, well, you know, I'm just going to sit here and wait, I would be freaking livid. Livid.
But you see,
So
some of the studies, then you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I remember studying, Christ did not consider himself Christian. He didn't. He was just someone who went out and did healing and all these different things. The Christians are the ones that grabbed onto him, and then they turned around and they stabbed him in the back, basically, when they saw he was doing the witchy stuff. You know? So that part, in terms of, to me, that's why I would have Christ as one of my deities, because he was not a Christian.
No.
I guess that's why it's a lot of little things about that Christian witch thing that doesn't rest well with me, but that's okay.
No, you know what? I understand
it's not my right to accept it. It's their right to accept it.
Right. So. But I do understand what you're saying, because the same way it bothers you to hear the term Christian witch, hearing the term Christian bothers me, because I'm like, you people aren't even following what Christ said. You're saying you've decided to follow what the apostle said, and you've completely ignored what Christ said, what he went through, what he taught you to do. And you're like, oh no, I can't do that because then I might be, you know, I have powers that would make me a witch. Well, guess what? Christ was a witch, and he was persecuted as a witch, just like the people who followed in his footsteps. So snap out of the Christians and recognize that you're not being Christian if you are not doing what Christ.
And I wanted to say, Mystic Crone says that she grew up in a family of witches, but they would never say that. And she said her grandmother taught her, said, we don't talk about our craft either. So we all kind of, I think when we were kids, we were all taught by our elders,
right,
that no, we don't call it that, or we don't do this with it, but we're doing this anyways, kind of a thing. Their ways of hiding what it is they were doing. But I think, and like you said, we are all basically, if you're going to go by blood, DNA, whatever it is, we're all basically witches, which is that whole concept I've always said, that we are all born witches. It's up to us whether we pick up that torch for it in this lifetime or not. You know, and some of us won't and some of us will. Okay, so the next one is the Hellenic Witch, which is a form of non-witchcraft, actually. Okay, so the Hellenics then. Craft practice in which the practicer follows Greek ideals, culture, and honors the Greek pantheons. That's interesting.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, but if you're saying it's a form of non-witchcraft, it means that you're not a witch, right?
That's what I would think, but you know, looking at the Greek traditions, I don't understand how they could see that. I don't know, you know, that's something I would probably have to. I'm not going to say too much on it, because if I'm ignorant about something, I'm not going to talk about it. This is something I'm going to have a highlighter on that, so that I can take the time one day to
go and find out. I know I have. I actually have something in one of my things on Hellenic. I have to look it up and see what it is I have. Girl, I have so much stuff. It's not even in the book form. It's something that I had from one of the studies that I did many, many, many years ago, back in '92, I think.
Right.
A lot of the traditions in New York tend to write up things that they wrote up, but they're not published books or works. And you would have copies of those things. And it's one of those. I have to look it up and see what I have.
Yeah, I'm
I have
gonna
so much.
look because
Yeah.
I don't know a whole lot about it.
Yeah.
I will say that I work with a lot of Greek deity, but as far as a Hellenic tradition, even now I'm trying to look and see, but I don't really have time to look at it now. But anyway, so we'll move on because we don't really know a lot about that, and we don't like to talk about things that we don't know what we're talking about. Okay, next we have Celtic magical practice that is based from the Celtic culture, including its mythology, deities, old ways, and occasionally language and symbols. May also describe those who only worship Celtic gods. I think we have a lot of Celtic witches out there, although I'll tell you, I went to an event we had, what was it? It was a Celtic festival here in Albuquerque where I was vending, and I went with the people who own the Blue Eagle that I do readings out of. And so we went there together and we set up a table, and I was like, wow, we'll probably get a lot of people here, the Celtic witches and things. I was very excited to go because when I think Celtic, I think of witches. And they said, don't expect that because there are a lot of Celtic people who are Catholic and they will frown on what
That's true.
They'll give us dirty looks or things like that. And I'm like, well, then how can they be coming to a Celtic festival if they don't even believe in their own spirituality?
Yeah.
And it's like, to them, it's not a spirituality, it's a culture. There's a difference. And so even though they may wear Celtic symbols and Celtic crosses and the different symbols that I love so much that they have, they don't look at it the way that we look at it. And they were right. I signed up because I figured, wow, there's going to be all these witches there. I'll probably make a lot of money. I mean, I didn't do too bad for myself, but I did not get the response that I was expecting at all, because we did get some dirty looks, like, what are you guys doing here? And we were pretty much the only magical workers there with the magical stuff. Everyone else there had more cultural things than that. So I say all this to say, if someone says that they are Celtic, don't assume that they are witches or of that spirituality. They could just be talking about their culture, that one has nothing to do with the other. Because I got fooled, because again, no. So
yeah, but that's absolutely true. That I've known that about a lot of the Celts. They are heavily Catholic, and they do take offense. It reminds me of the Native Americans and being Christian and all of that. So yeah, they do take highly to offenses to it.
So just be careful with that so that you don't offend anyone. All right, what do we got next, Goddess Star?
Okay, the next one is the Strigeria, which I kind of mentioned earlier because I mentioned that Raven Gramassi has a book on it. I think I can't remember the name of the book, but I know that he considers himself an Italian witch, who's changed over the years, but still that's where he says his hereditary witchcraft comes from. But for the Strigerias, it's definitely an Italian meaning for religion of witches. And in general, specifically refers to sorcery or magical practices of witches that oppose their religion. Italian witchcraft is one of the oldest forms of European witchcraft, second only to Greek witchcraft mentioned by Homer and Hesiod in 8th century BCE. And that's another thing about it, that it kind of hits a nerve there with me a bit, because they always kind of indicate, because it's in written form, that it's one of the oldest forms of witchcraft, which is inaccurate. Because witchcraft has been, since the beginning, has been with many different tribes around the world. Them having not written it on paper does not mean it's not documented as such to call it one of the oldest witchcraft beginnings of witchcraft anywhere. So it's kind of like saying, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Well, he discovered what? It was already there, and it was already discovered by its people that were living there.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of like, to me, so that one hits a little bit of a nerve for me. But yeah, Italian witchcraft. So what do you think?
Well, I think that you're right. I this is where I get also annoyed is where when people, they got their chest out and are like, my tradition is the oldest tradition. And maybe, I'm sure that it is very old, but by saying that, you discount a lot of people. And again, I say this, who don't call themselves witches, or they kind of skate around the term. It wasn't until I went to a Seder dinner that I was invited to, a Jewish celebration, that I actually got to really listen to what happened between the pharaohs and Moses's people. And I always watch that movie. What is it? The Ten Commandments. That was the pretty much the extent
Uh-huh.
of a lot of what I knew about the Old Testament. However, in going through the Seder, where they actually take you through the events, that was actually a fight between magicians. There, the pharaohs had their magicians, and Moses had his magicians. And it just happened that Moses' magicians won. They were the more, to me, that just means they were the more skilled in my eyes as a witch. Whoever's the more skilled with the best spells, they're the ones that are going to win. But I had never heard it presented that way, where they're saying first, I don't know the whole thing, and I have to go back and look it up. But first, the pharaoh's magicians, they did this, and then Moses' magicians, they countered with that, and it was a big fight between magicians to see who could do the worst. Then it finally got to the plague level where they're throwing plagues at each other, and it's finally like, okay, the pharaohs threw in the towel or whatever. But that was a fight between magicians, witches, whatever you want to call it. But they would not say, they don't say that in there. They said it was the priests who were battling it out. And I'm like, dude, priests, magician, witch. This was a magic fight. This was a fight as to who's got the best spells. And it just turned out that at that moment, Moses had, his magicians were more skilled. But there are so many traditions that don't think of themselves as witches, even though what they're doing encompasses witchcraft. It's like, it's just, so we can't call it witchcraft, we'll call it something else, but it's still the same thing. So if you can't really say you're the oldest, because you're not taking into consideration traditions that, while they may not call themselves witches, they have a very deep, rich history of witchcraft within their traditions. And a lot of their stuff, the other traditions became offshoots of that. So I don't think anyone has the right to say that their tradition is the oldest or the best or whatever. That's just ego and has nothing to do. This isn't a football, dudes, where you're like, well, the Jets are better than the Cowboys. Oh, come on. Let's not do that. Let's not let's not bring human competition into divine spirituality.
Into your class. Yeah, it shouldn't be there in the first place.
No,
and anytime that gets in there, it does create all the witch wars that you see on Facebook, or all the different things, because when you bring it all down to the base of what a lot of that is based on, it's ego or jealousy. And it's such a shame, rather than, I admire Goddess Rhonda for so many things that she does, and I admire other people, Laurie Cabot, my elder, and all the different people for all the different gifts that they have and brought to the table, because we all have something to offer.
Right.
We are all adept at something more so than another person, but it's not there to do the competition about, I know this and you are, and one up the other person. But wow, can we compliment each other on it? And can you teach me that one? Because I would love to get adept at it as you are, and things like that. And rather than do that, there's this whole itises that we talk about, and the egos and the jealousies. And you want to know something? A lot of times I kind of just walk away now, because I'm like, I cannot listen to children fight on Facebook anymore. And when you look, they're like 40 or 50 or whatever the frig their ages are. And you're sitting there going, how old are you?
Right.
But that's what they do. So it's like my witchcraft is better than your witchcraft.
Yeah, you know,
No, it's not. It's just different practices. You can all go and say, I learned one type of witchcraft, all of us. And somebody's going to come out more adept than somebody else. It's just the nature of things. But if you are so good and adept at something, you don't have to praise yourself or anybody else. You don't, because you're really that good. You don't have to use your ego. You don't have to use any of that because you're just that good. You know, you're humble and you walk away. I'm like, yeah, okay. It's all good, because actually, in a way, by you being that way, they don't even know what hits you when you finally retaliate. They have no clue what hits them because, wow, I did not know. It's so full of your head. You know, it is what it is. But anyways, going on from there. um, let's see. I just saw, what did I write down here? Okay, so from the Stregoria, what's the next one do we have here? I think that's you guys,
yes,
Rhonda.
the Santeria. I threw this one in here because I felt like prefer the name, and forgive me if I mispronounce anything, Regla de Ocha or Lusumi religion. Although it's practiced today by people all over the world, Regla de Ocha is generally defined as an Afro-Cuban religion that originated in what is today Nigeria and Benin in West Africa. The word Santeria comes from Spanish and loosely translates as devotion to the saints or santos. Many practitioners of the Regla Lukumi, again, forgive me if I'm saying this incorrectly, refer to the orichas or the deities of the religion as saints or santos. This tendency to combine terminology and concepts from Catholicism and West Africa religions is sometimes called religious syncretism, or I guess a synchronicity. And so, you know, a lot of people don't realize that the Catholic religion is based on Santeria, where the African slaves came over and they hid their magic into what would be more, they took the saints that represented what their deities were and used that to create the tradition that they do. And so a lot of people don't realize that the similarities and the actual connections between Catholicism and Santeria. Now, there are people that say that, you know, Catholicism is based on Santeria, or Santeria is based on Catholicism, or they use Catholicism to work within it. I don't know, because that's not who I don't know much about that tradition, although I do know that they do have a lot of saint candles and things like that. So I did want to throw that in there because I had a really close friend who was Santana, and she was just awesome, and I loved learning from her. I really did. She was just the way coolest. And so by throwing that in there, I was really honoring her because I haven't seen her in a very long time, and I was thinking about her. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about that. Do you want to add anything to that, Goddess Star?
No. I mean, okay. I say no and then I start talking, right? So I guess I kind of do. Okay. I have met some Santeros and Santeras, and a lot of them I know, and some are more adept than some. I find they are very linear in their belief systems, and yes, it is. A lot of it came in from Africa, changed around as time between people become indigenous to whatever it is, and so they adapt to their culture of whatever it is. And they do the saints, whereas to the Africans, the Orishas are not saints, deities. You know what I mean, or different. Is that they're pantheons. You know, if something originates from something, I will have the tendency to go to the originals. You know, but I like learning about all of them, and they do have a lot to offer different people. We're all different, you know. I love my craft the way it is. So I guess that's my little parts of what I'm saying. I know some of it, but yet at the same time, I do not.
Yeah, I don't
And then my
know.
answers are
I will say though that I do love working. I work with saints. I love working with the saints, and they've helped me out a lot. So I
Yeah,
just
I do. I've worked with a couple of them. I worked with Saint Jude Thaddeus,
mm-hmm,
um, Saint of Impossible Task. I've worked with that one, and he has been wonderful
mm-hmm.
with different things that I've done with people. So that's the only one I've worked with Saint wise. It does work if you believe in it. Like with any other parts of your craft, it works. Doesn't matter what it is that you're trying to use. I have used, like you said, I have used because I've done like I'm gonna go back to being the Borg again because I've assimilated so many things from different from different parts of my practice. When I am brought with a case or whatever it is that I have to deal with, I don't think in that linear fashion of what my craft is. I just think of in a Borg-like fashion, and I come up with whatever it is in my head that I'm being told that would work best for that situation. It just happens to work out. What I'm told would work. It's from that assimilated collection of all the knowledge I've gained over the time from different traditions. What would you think about that?
I'm with you on that. In fact, I was just looking up. I have to try to find it. I wish I
What's
had
that?
thought to look at it before. Every astrological sign has a saint associated with it. So this actually goes back even deeper than just Catholicism or Santana. The saints are actually associated depending on what your sign or what planet you go with. There's a saint that's assigned to you. So that always, when I see things like that, a blend where with Christianity, and it's Christianity the way people look at it, not the way I look at it, as I've already explained. When you're saying, well, there's an astrological correspondence, a connection with Christianity. I'm like, how can you say that? It just, the two things together are like, hey, but they do have, each planet has a saint that goes with it. So I was trying to look it up because I know that for Pisces, Saint Jude represents Pisces. I don't know what everybody
Okay.
knows. Saint Michael represents Aries. We've got, and I looked some other ones up. Mercury, which would be Gemini, is Saint Christopher. Venus, which would be Libra or Taurus, is Mary Magdalene. The moon of the goddess traditions are the Virgin Mary. There's all Jupiter. So Jupiter is also a Pisces, and Sagittarius would be Saint Peter. Saturn, which would be Capricorns, would be Saint Dominic. And so I just thought it was fascinating to me that they're like, oh, don't do anything astrology and palm reading and all things like that. But by the way, here are the saints that go with the astrological signs and planets. I'm like, okay, you're bringing astrology in, which you're not supposed to do, but that's cool. I'm glad for the wisdom. Thanks for letting me know who my saint is. I'm glad to know it. So I just find that
Yeah.
interesting, though, that each sign has been assigned a patron saint to help them. And, many of us don't utilize that. I found St. Jude to be really helpful to me. And also St. Peter has really opened a lot of doors for me as well. So you really should kind of look up and see like what saint represents your sign. The Virgin Mary would also be Luna, would also be the moon. That would be Cancer. So Cancer, people would pray to the Virgin Mary or that sort of thing. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I just feel I just think it's interesting that they're like, don't do astrology, but by the way, here are the saints that go with astrology. It's just like, which is it? You're not supposed to do it or you are supposed to do it. It just lets you know how much they have taken out of the Bible, that how they've perverted it. I can't remember how many books are missing. I think there's like 40 books missing from the Bible or something like that. I'm like, well, how can you read something that's incomplete if they took stuff out? I want to see what they took out. Where are the books that are missing? I want to see
Yeah.
those books. Where are they? What's in them? I need to know. But of course, I probably
Yeah, and not only that, not only is it incomplete, but I mean, they're taking it as an absolute.
right.
Bible as an absolute. When you know for a fact in your head, a lot of it is missing. The paragraphs are the one that in between what you're reading, but they take all things as their word to whatever it is, and it's
Right.
kind of sad,
It is. It's very
and that there comes that part of not being able to follow. I can't follow people like that. I can't. I
right
will
because
question.
it's not making sense, and then I'm asking you questions and you can't answer me, and then I get annoyed. So, but
Yes.
anyway, so there we have that. All right, Goddess Star, what have we got next?
Okay, hold on. I was looking at the. See, there goes that noise again. I'm hearing it myself right now, and I just checked my mute, and it's still on mute, so I don't know.
I'll check.
Okay. Yeah, I'm constantly double checking to make sure if it's not me or anything like that.
Nope, I'm still on mute.
I don't know what it is then. Okay, so what's the next one? Is that the science? I believe.
Let's see. Next, we have African traditional religions.
Oh, okay.
The
Sorry.
ATR.
Back up to that one. African traditional. Okay, there you go. Okay. The African traditional religions, the traditional beliefs and practices of African people include various traditional religions. Generally, these traditions are oral rather than scriptural. Belief in a supreme creator, belief in spirits, veneration of the dead, use of magic, and traditional medicine. Um, I mean, from that, it sounds more like it's along the lines of the original time, not. Saying it is more the practice, and it's similar to what they would say Christianity, but of the African style.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. That's the impression I'm getting with it, because it's not. It's saying there's a belief in spirits and a veneration of the dead, and yet, but at the same time, it's saying use of magic and traditional medicine. But to me, a lot of the African traditions or religions, they were called witch doctors.
Yes.
So I don't know. The
Yes,
way
that's
it's
exactly
written,
right. And also, I know that
you
it's
know,
very deeply based in ancestral worship as well,
yeah,
which I
yeah,
really feel that, going back from, my mom, my grandma, but if you go all the way back, it's my own personal belief, as I said before, that deity is our ancestors as well. But, I think that's cool because I sure as hell call upon my ancestors to help me. And they do. I make offerings to them, I feed them, and I've had them come in different times and help me. One of them, my uncle, actually even saved my life with some dogs. And well, I can't really say that it would have come to that, but it could have gone into a bad situation. My brother saved my life from, and they're all past, of course, from fire. My grandmother has come back and scolded me on several occasions for different things that I wasn't doing. And so, I really do believe in that. I do believe in the veneration of our ancestors, whoever your ancestors are. So
that's
I'm
a big,
totally with that.
that's a big deal to me. Even though I only have one altar, I kind of put something there for my ancestors as well, because I really highly believe that we should always be honoring them in one form or another, because they make us who we are today.
That's right. They came
In
before us.
whatever.
They carved our path that we're on right now. They deserve some respect.
Yeah.
Even the ones that were not so nice, they still did something that contributed to you. And so we need to show gratitude because they came before us and they took a lot of blows and punches and all kinds of crap before we got here. And so we have to give them respect. And I do believe that they do come back and teach us because I've had them come and talk to me and tell me things. So I think that honoring your your ancestors really is a very important part of spirituality, because they really did carve the way. And even if they didn't call themselves witches, I can almost guarantee you, if you come from a Christian background or a Jewish background or whatever kind of background you come from, I can almost guarantee you, if you think about it, you'll know, you'll remember an aunt that was doing something. She might not have called it witchcraft. She might have called it,
Yeah.
healing you with herbs, or healing you, with whatever it is. You would still probably find that you come from a family of witches. They just might not say it. And so even they have passed on that magic down from them into you. And so
Yes.
you have to honor them. And I think, quite frankly, I think if you're not using the magic that was passed on to you, I think you do them a disservice. You're not respecting that, what they gave to you, that gift. And so I think that, and again, of course, this is my opinion. I'm not telling you what you need to do. I am only saying the way I feel about it. How you feel about it is perfectly fine. I don't judge anybody. I'm just giving you what I feel about it, as Goddess Star does as well. We are not saying we know everything, and we are not dictating. We are just giving our opinion, but we support everyone in their traditions. I just want to make that clear.
And we do let you know that we don't. Yeah, we let you know. And we don't know something we say we don't know. And who knows, you will hear us ramble. So.
All right.
Yes, and this is just because it's been a long set of years of doing this. It's not just 10 years or 20 years. It's been a long set of years doing this. So yes, we're gonna pick up things along the way. It's just nature and it's just natural.
Exactly.
But we do say honor yourself, honor your ancestors. No matter what you say or do, whether you do pick up that torch now or not, that gift is innately in you. And it's going to come out at some point, whether you want it to or not. So sometimes I've heard people say it comes out in a negative manner because it's not being utilized. If you want it to come out in the best possible way, work with it, get to know it, and see where you would go from there with it. And you can decide yourself that you are. You can make whatever tradition you want. Even as a solitary, you can name your own solitary tradition, whatever which you want to be. You have that right to claim that. Start it then, and no one has the right to tell you that your lineage is not right, because 20 years from now, lineage of witches of that whatever you passed on.
Right.
It happens because a lot of people love to lord over other witches and claim about their lineage and all the different things. But I'm going to tell you now, the lineage that I came from, or which is the Cabot tradition, or other things like that, Laurie started that many, many years ago. And if she didn't start, it wouldn't be the Cabot tradition lineage, family background lineage, or whatever it is. So if you started one now, 20 years from now, it's going to be. So do what's best for you, and don't let anyone hold you back or tell you or dictate to you that you can or cannot do it. Just to go with your heart and your intuition. All right. And we love you guys for supporting us. Nate, thank you so much for being out. Get this rock. And all of you else in our chat room. We love having you guys support us in every way. It's always a welcome. We will miss you guys if you're not there, because we love having you guys with us. You're definitely a big part of our show.
It makes a big difference to know that you're there and you're supporting us and you're teaching us, because we learn from you as well. And I actually thought, as usual, I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about all the different witches, and then we're going to talk about the different types of witchcraft, and we didn't even get to touch on that. So next week we will talk about, there are so many different types, and we're not talking about witches now. We're talking about actual types of witchcraft, that there's just so many out there. And we're going to talk about that next week to see what it is that you resonate with, or maybe introduce you to some areas that you may not have learned about yet that might pique your interest. So with all that said, as always, we love you, we thank you, and we say merry meet, merry part,
Very
and merry meet again.
well,
Thank you
thank you guys
so
so
much,
much.
everyone. Good night.
Good night, everyone.